And I say dive deeper because I'm a cognitive coach. I coach through cognition. So when I say dive deeper, I really mean using your mind to dive deep into who you really are as a human being, who you really are as a person, and getting to know yourself at a deeper level.
And see, I always was a physical person when I was younger, but then this part of me was urging me to learn how to earn with my mind because I did so much physical labor, and it's important to have that balance between a healthy body and a healthy mind. But when we choose to educate ourselves and invest in our capacity, the limits of the mind are really endless compared to our physical body does have a cap. And I mean, I'm a bit curious, how did you get pushed down this road of finding a passion for the mental side of life and becoming the cognition coach that you are today? Where did that sprout from?
Oh, I love that question, man. It's definitely going to be a big answer. I mean, I could just give you my life story right here if you want. I can just give you my life story because that's really where it comes down to, brother. Like, I've always had something tickling within me since I was young, since I was a kid. Um, but it's really until I want to say about the end of 2020, like about 2 years ago, like holiday season of 2020 is really when I started getting into inner work. At first it was just self-development as a whole, like a lot of the physical, like we were talking about, like physical body, productivity, um, a little bit of mindset in there, but then it really, really got deeper around the end of 2020. So, yeah, so to answer the question, right, on when I got into it, or what got me into it, excuse me. So I pretty much, like, a lot of my childhood, my upbringing, there's a lot of disconnection within myself that happened. Lots of it. I definitely, my parents are amazing. They're amazing. They provided me with a lot of love, a lot of care. But it's just different cultures, to say the least. They're from Iran. They were born and raised in Iran. They moved here in America um, pretty much after or during the Iranian Revolution of 1979, which is so interesting we're talking about that because there's another one happening right now. But this is the Revolution of 79. So they came over here, uh, and just like the culture at home was obviously a lot different than American culture. Born and raised in Massachusetts, Boston. So I definitely always felt like a little lost because of that and a little uncertain with who I am and where I fit in growing up. And I feel like because of a lot of that, that led to a lot of people pleasing in elementary school and middle school and high school, a lot of wanting to fit in, a lot of accepting other people's bullying or toxic behavior or whatever, so I could feel a part of a group, a part of something. Who am I in relation to other people? And that got me in some pretty bad scenarios as I was getting older and older into my teens. By high school, I pretty much was a part of a group of a lot of bullies, drug addicts, drug dealers. I was selling a lot of pot myself during that time period as well. I got arrested for it. And this is senior year of high school. I remember I got arrested on the last day of senior year of high school. I couldn't walk graduation for that and all that stuff. But anyways, it was just, I hung out with a pretty rough crowd in high school that would pick on me a lot because I was very skinny back then. I was trying to fit in and just trying to be a part of a group that didn't really love or accept me for me. I got my ass kicked a lot, made fun of a lot, all that fun stuff. And then after high school, I went on to college. My second year of college, I got invited back into a girl's dorm room that I met at a party. And essentially that experience that we had together, there was some miscommunication going on, and then something happened. She kicked me out. I left. Later on that night, the cops were at my door and I got falsely accused of rape, is what happened. And I spent a whole night in jail and all that stuff the next day, you know, or yeah, the next day, because it was on a weekend. So court didn't open till Monday. The charges got dropped pretty quickly, but it didn't really matter because everyone that I grew up with and knew, almost everyone, I still have my close friends who had my back, but I got harassment all throughout Facebook. People who knew me since I was a little boy, all of them harassed me. I got death threats on my phone. My house got egged a couple of times, the same home I was living with my parents. Yeah, it was just, it was a tough time. And I really just ended up really breaking as a person because of that. So I spent a lot of the time after that in my early 20s in my room. I became a Twitch streamer, and I was live streaming on Twitch part-time while finishing up college online during my 20s. And Twitch was cool because it taught me how to really get back into relationships again of all kinds. It taught me how to really re-socialize myself and really just do the basic 101 foundations of just gaining confidence in who I am, so I can just speak to someone, hang out with someone, build a connection and a friendship through these video games and through these online chats and little like TV shows we pretty much have online. That's pretty much what Twitch is, just having these little online virtual shows. It's like YouTube, but it's live. And that really helped me just get in there, get a little uncomfortable, and just start making friends again. But unfortunately, with that also came a downside of a lot of alcohol. I would stream on Twitch fucking hammered half the time, excuse my language, but I would stream just hammered, drunk, on drugs, making jokes, being edgy. And there was a lot of energy, the creative energy that I had that wanted to come out there, but there was just so much shame in being able to express who I was and from a sober perspective that I just, in my opinion, my best streams, right, were the ones where I was hammered, because I was just really putting myself out there, but in a very destructive and unhealthy way. I was gaining weight, all this, you know. So then fast forward a little bit, I met a girl on Twitch, and this was like the first girl I was really, you know, in love with. And this was a girl that I was able to kind of practice having that sort of man to woman connection with since the false rape accusation. So it was something that I got to step into and get out of my comfort zone a little bit. And it was a good connection as far as our chemistry and how much we cared about each other. But later on, when I say later on, I mean about close to a year and a half of being close with another human being this way, I found out she had a boyfriend the entire time, unfortunately. She was going through a rough time at home, and this was a distraction for her, you know? And that broke my fucking heart. That destroyed my fucking heart, brother. as one can tell, you know? And I'm really grateful that I'm able to just talk about it like this now. You know, it's cool. Because I'm actually really grateful for that experience. And we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk more about cognition and stuff. But yeah, it just that really broke me for a bit. And I was sort of now into personal development a little bit. Like I was still streaming on Twitch, but I was drinking a lot less. I was hitting the gym more. I had a bit of that entrepreneur mindset. I was also working in B2B sales and doing pretty well over there. So yeah, it was just being able to grow and also just wake up. Like, I need some help here, you know? The first book my buddy gave me, well, unfortunately, he ended up passing away like 6 months later, but he recommended me the book, The 4 Agreements, when I was telling him I was getting into personal development, like towards the end of 2020. And that was the first like book that really got me on the inner work journey. I would say that's the book that really like, I was like, wow, this really is inspiring me here. And, you know, I was realizing that it's not just personal development that I like, it's inner work that I like. It's being able to become the best version of myself within. That really spoke to me. Being able to really build a relationship with myself and heal from a lot of these people-pleasing patterns and unworthiness and shame that was just taking over my life. And that's really where the journey began, man. That's where it began. And from there, I started diving deeper into inner work through books and podcasts. And then towards the beginning of 2021, I quit my job because it just wasn't speaking to me anymore. And I made a decent amount of money through it. I was like, let me just discover myself more. And I signed up to work with my life coach, Kevin Ayo, who I found through the podcasting world. And he helped me really dive deeper throughout a lot of these wounds that I was carrying, throughout a lot of this weight, this energetic weight that was on my shoulders. We worked through that for a few months, and I was really just picking it up quickly. You know, like this process is a never ending process, but it really just resonated the first like 4 or 5 months working with him. And I really could see my life change and my confidence expanding, and just me being comfortable with myself and being true to my word and being who I am, you know? And shortly after that, he created a certification course to teach other people how to coach. And I was like, right on, like, this is my calling right here. Like, I love what I'm learning. I love how free I feel. I need to share this with people. I need to help other people. I want to help other people. So that was now towards the end of, or towards the summer of 2021. So I started the certification program July of 2021. And I launched my business August of 2021 afterwards, of Sessions Life Coaching. And that's really just where it began. And then from there, you know, it's been an awesome, it's been an amazing journey. You know, I've helped over 50 people become more free and more confident in themselves through private coaching. I've hosted a lot of webinars on Eventbrite, and just been able to speak and connect with so many people who just want to feel love and be free. You know, and that's where we are today. That's where we're at today. So yeah, it was a long-winded answer, but
that's a fantastic. It's fantastic that you're able to articulate your life story like that. If I tried to articulate it all, it would probably take me a bit longer. So even if it's a quote unquote long-winded answer, the amount of information you packed into that. See, and what I want to touch on is time and time again, I am realizing that people start working for their best selves only after terrible situations like you've had to go through. See, my rock bottom was not nearly as harsh as yours, but each individual seems to have to come to this situation of being so sick of being sick and tired. And yours was a bit more dramatic. Like I it's funny, this is the first time I'll disclose this, but I've sold a lot of weed in my life as well. And the amount of mental stress that came with that, I had no idea what it was doing to me. And after so much introspection, I can now have the 2020 hindsight to see back into my past and realize how my decisions were affecting me. But I'm grateful that you came out the other end. Like, see, we have this decision to make. Do we sit down and play the victim card when life gets tough? Or do you just continue to persevere and question, like, where am I doing things wrong? What can I do a little bit better? And it's obvious that you've done that. And your journey is just a tough journey. Like how the alcohol oozed itself into there, and the amount of pain, the amount of damage that alcohol causes, not only to your physical body, but to your mental cognition. I love to talk about how interconnected everything is, because it's like our inputs determine our output. But if we don't take time to have rest or meditation, go on these nature walks, then we don't even have the space to create anything, even if you're having great inputs. Like, I just had this thought. I'm curious, how did your friend who recommended what was the name of that book? The 4 Assignments?
The 4 Agreements. And I definitely recommend that book. It's a short read. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. Yeah, the four agreements.
Awesome. See, I love book recommendations because consuming long form content has to be one of the most life changing things for me. And I'm assuming a lot of other individuals. But what happened to him? Like, he must have been an individual who he recommended to you a great book. So I'm curious, how did he end up passing away?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. He ended up committing suicide, unfortunately. He ended up yeah, taking his own life.
And this is exactly why I'm obsessed with this psychology aspect of life, because see, I never got to a point where I was ready to do the act, but I had thoughts. And I know so many of my friends in high school who definitely had thoughts. And it alarms me why we are not educated at least a little bit on psychology at a younger age. Like how to rewire limiting beliefs, how to have the awareness of negative inner dialogue. Like these small but huge aspects of our lives are not really taught in school. I had to figure this stuff out through going through a rock bottom type of situation.
Yeah.
And I'm just, it really pushes me to want to create some sort of solution. And like you're doing with your coaching practice, that is part of the solution. But then another part of me wants this to be more corporate, more structured. Like we need to pay a bit more attention to how to optimize the school systems. Like that, do you have any thoughts about the school systems? I know that's
Oh, absolutely. You're speaking my language right now, brother. I do. Um, it's a lot to unpack there in what you just said, because it's like, now I don't want to put the school systems and the government and our systems that we have in place as the enemy, because I don't believe in revolution. I believe in evolution. You know, I believe in reforming, not revolting. But there is a benefit that the system does have on not teaching us this stuff, right? Like, think about the way our system works. It's, hey, we go to school, we get reprimanded if we do bad, we get praised if we do well, whatever even that means, right? These are just constructs, social constructs that have been created and put in place for us. And then on top of that, we then go into the workforce. We work in for a company, for another company. They use that same exact system for what is considered good and bad, right? It's almost like normal to feel bad about not doing a good enough job, whatever the fuck that means at the end of the day, right? Whatever that means. Whatever that means. It's just a story. It's just made up. It's socially constructed what good and bad job means. And then you get shamed for one socially constructed story and you get praise for another socially constructed story. And these things aren't bad, but we can observe them and ask ourselves, how can we use what we know now as millennials, as this generation, to be able to evolve, to be able to move forward, to be able to progress in the way we give back to these systems, to how we're going to start getting involved in these systems. Because I totally agree with you, brother. Like, life coaching, I love it. Twitter, I love it. I love creating content on this stuff. But yeah, I agree. Like, it's time to start bringing it into our system so we can reform and we can evolve.
and I took a note earlier about a slow evolution. This was how my progress has happened, and same thing with you. It's not as if anything great happens quickly, but the small adjustments, the small acts that we do each day, that's what can compound. It goes full circle. And that I do feel the responsibility. I don't know how exactly we're going. See, anyone who acts as if they know or have it all figured out, I run away from those people because it's illogical. The wise people really have this understanding. Well, I'm learning each day and I definitely do make mistakes, but I'm aware enough to to question myself, to introspect. And I was not raised, but had this natural inclination to blame or to put the government, the school systems as the enemy. And over the past couple of years, as I've grown smarter, that's not exactly the solution. See, if we're going to bring up problems, we also have to bring up solutions,
Yes.
because we don't want to install fear or panic into people who listen to us. We address problems, but at the same time, there's always something, even if it's a small step. It is a step in the right direction. I love the cliche, it's not about the speed that you're going out, but the direction that you're headed. So
Yes.
we can continue to really advance ourselves. See, this is the solution I've come up with. And I did not come up with this. This is the solution that sounds best to me, is becoming the most excellent individual you can possibly be. And with the ripple effect that spreads, and through the podcast, through the life coaching, we can slowly change other individuals, and ideally throughout time, the slow evolution will make its way into the systems in the corporate structure. But with the big questions, it's like, well, if I can't really control that right now, what can I do? And just becoming an excellent individual has to be the number one step to make this world better. And yeah, what do you think about that?
I love that. I love that so much. It's like I can't change, right? We can't change the fact that the world is divided, that people argue. We can't change the fact that there are systems in place that are now more unhealthy than they really are healthy. But like you said, though, my webcam got a little blurry here. Just poke at it. It does that sometimes. There we go. What we can do, though, is change our perception, because that's all we can control. Sure, there's a lot of violence and shame and hate in this world, but we don't have to choose to believe in that. We can still choose that the world is a peaceful place in our mind, through our perception, because then that's the energy that you bring out there. You know, I've had some back and forths with people before when they talk about how, oh, the world sucks, or, you know, this is a dangerous world we live in. And I give the perception of, well, is that really the truth, or is that your belief? That doesn't mean that there's no danger out in the world. But what it means is that we can choose to feed into that through our vibration and what we decide to embody through our thoughts, through our mind. Or we can choose a perception that's higher, and we can believe it already exists. You know, there's this one quote, I forget who said it, but I love it so much. World peace already exists. Everybody else just needs to be on board with it. It's already here for us. Everyone else just needs to believe that story exists too.
And this reminds me of when I began to strengthen my faith in something bigger. See, when I was younger, I was raised as a Christian, but part of me believed in nothing. Like, I was a pure materialist in high school. And this is with my mom saying prayers and everything. It just was not attractive to me. I had no appeal to believing that there was something bigger than the individual human. And then I don't know how the spirituality evolves for people, but the more conversations I have, the more I realize it's always some weird sort of urge or some hint that comes from who knows where. I would call it the subconscious or the intuition, the gut feel. But I just had this urge to ask my grandma for a Bible. And see, I am not a pure Christian because I realize all the religions, they come to the same conclusion, that your inner voice, your conscious, that is God. So Hinduism, Taoism, Islam, Christianity, I'm not here to say this one or that one. What I'm
Right.
here to say is they all come to the same conclusion. Okay, sure, if they differ in some small details, but if we completely get rid of the distractions. Completely is probably not the right word, but the more that we get in touch with our intuition, we have a clear conscious through healthy activities. See, this is where I really get into the full circle aspect. When you eat healthy and you train often and you meditate and you consume high energy information, the louder your conscious gets, because
Yeah.
you have rid yourself of the ego or the distractions. And I'm still working to be able to articulate this in a very simple way. But see, Dan Coe says this often, that the highest value individuals of the future are going to be the people who can take complex topics and simplify them. And I really I never force spirituality upon anyone, because I realize if it was forced upon me at a younger age, it was, and I said, get it away from me. I have no
Right.
interest. But eventually that urge, that intuition, it was there, and I decided to listen to it. I've always been like that. I always wanted to trust my intuition, but for a long time, I clouded it out. I was never alone. See, I took a note on this earlier. You were in solitude after that case, that situation. And is that where you started to really ask the right questions and kind of slowly come to the right answers, in solitude?
A little bit, a little bit. Um, Back then, remember, I was age 20, so I didn't really start like the conscious part of my spiritual journey until probably like 25 years old. Around that time, I'm 28 now. So yes, like there was some answers, but I couldn't even intellectualize it back then. Now I know what it was. Like, it was all just source, divine energy, God, whatever you want to call it, guiding me to be here right now. But during that time when I was in solitude, I mean, unfortunately, there was a lot of alcohol involved. So that was blocking me from really getting towards my intuition. But for what I knew at that time was just, I need to do something that's not study online to get my degree and sit at home all day. So that's where the video games came in. That's where the Twitch streaming came in. That's where the socialization came in. But it was when I was hanging out in those communities when I started waking up, because I started to see how much divide there was, how much anger there was, how much people would try to cancel each other over doing the right thing, right? But they're all behaving really awful towards each other over doing the right thing. Sort of how religions would fight each other in ancient times to do the right thing, right? In God's name, we kill other people, right? It's the same exact thing we're experiencing today with cancel culture, with quote unquote woke mentality, right? There's nothing woke about understanding there's a higher way and then shaming and hurting and socially bashing the old ways. And I see people doing that now with spirituality too. I know I'm going way off from the question that you answered right now, but I just I love talking about this. I see people doing this today with spirituality as well. Like, I see people waking up, they become more spiritually in touch, and then they start shaming the people that are asleep. And it's like, why? You're going back into that old mindset again. You know, it's just, yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting.
That was a tough phase for me. I think,
Same with me too.
see, we all go through phases in
Yeah.
self-development. And one of my favorite mentors, Wes Watson, he has this idea that, I don't know the phrase he uses, but when you actualize yourself, you get to this point where you start to feel better than other people. And what happens is what you said, you put others down. It's like, wait. And I get it. Sometimes you have to go through a phase, but
Yeah.
we can't stay in that season of having ourselves on a damn pedestal. And then it's like what you mentioned earlier. What are you contributing to? If you are this spiritual, this enlightened person, but you're still spewing negative energy into the world, you're not enlightened at all, man. Not at all. And
Right.
I don't want to act as if I never have negative thoughts, negative moments,
We all do.
but exactly, and that's why I'm so very obsessed with awareness. The mindfulness that comes, that's built through daily meditation or any activity that really requires your focus. See, this is why I like things like weightlifting, reading books, writing, meditating, anything that requires your full attention. That's going to help with your awareness. And when you're aware, you're going to be able to catch yourself when your ego is taking over. See, I was
Yes.
talking to these guys at the gym this morning, and or maybe it was yesterday, but they were like, "Oh, the gym's getting pretty packed. It's not usually like this." And I go on to say, part of me is like, I want a quiet gym. I don't want a lot of people here. I say that's my ego, because my higher self says the more people at the gym, the more people taking care of themselves, the more that they're
Wow.
the increased odds of positive thinking comes from that. So it's like this awareness of, oh yeah, my ego wants a quiet gym, but my higher self realizes we want more people to be taking care of themselves.
I really like that a lot. So I'm not gonna lie, I'll admit it right here on the podcast. Like I definitely get a little irritated when the gym gets too packed. But that's the ego though. That's the selfish mind. That's the self-serving mind. That's not the service mind right there. That's not the higher self. I love that a lot. I'm gonna take note on that for next time the gym gets packed for me too.
Yeah.
I
And
like
it's
that.
like, well, where does that come from? It comes from our awareness. And I think, see, Dan Coe says this often too. There are a lot of ways to make your life better, but it all comes down to your focus, your attention. And when we choose to focus on the positive things, like you mentioned, perception, focus, attention, it's all so tightly correlated, because what we just described right there is the same situation, a packed gym and a packed gym. But one perspective is appreciating the good that comes from the packed gym. And the other is, oh, I'm going to complain. I'm going to say, I want a quiet gym. Eh, It's so, like, a good rule of thumb is anytime you catch yourself complaining, you're probably not right.
Right. I love that. Or in fear too, or anxious. Any sort of just lower vibrational energy that's trying to grab your attention. And I love how you use the word awareness a lot too, man, because that's simply what we are at the end of the day and who we are. We are just simply awareness.
And that's a deep idea. I see, I've studied so many different people throughout my time, and it I don't know if I would say that Nikola Tesla was vilified or not admired as much as he should have been, but I'm beginning to really realize how much frequencies, vibrations, and energies matter. I didn't have that approach until recently, but you really, everything changes when you start to think in those terms.
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to this frame of perception? Was it through Nikola Tesla, or how did you really come in tune with the energies and the vibrations?
Yeah. So like the awareness, spirituality. Yeah. That was through my life coach. So I was always more into it from a science and physical perspective up until beginning of 2021 when I signed up working with him. And he really gave me a whole new perception of reality. What was cool about it is that he taught me spirituality through psychology, neuroscience first, and then through that, little by little, I was starting to connect the dots of how a lot of these invisible teachings are coming in and being backed up by science now, and we have quantum physics, you know, and going back to the whole topic about the school systems again, school systems are still stuck on Newtonian physics, thinking that's more important than quantum physics, you know, and it's just, I don't know, it's wild. It's wild how this stuff is measurable. We can measure it now through science. That's all that science is being able to measure through the physical plane. And it's just, yeah, it blows my mind, brother.
A lot of this stuff, I agree, like completely mind blowing. And it's some of the information. Have you ever heard of actualize.org?
Have not.
Okay, he's essentially just a good teacher, but he talks about what are a few topics I've listened to the past few days, like the power of questions, the power of not knowing. And he does these deep 3-hour lectures. I'd love if you checked him out. I think you would enjoy his content. He's got 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's been making videos for over 10 years. So it's like he is experienced. And a lot of the things that he says, I'm like, it doesn't go through one ear and out the other, but it's something that I'm going to be pondering upon for years and years. And
what's his YouTube channel?
Actualize.org.
Okay, that's the YouTube channel.
Yeah. And
Actualize. Okay, sorry.
no, it's okay. I'm glad you're taking a note, because I have a feeling like it. The way that I look at it is I love what Danco says. And I came across actualize.org like a year or two ago, but then Dan started talking about him. I'm like, okay, if I love what Dan says and Dan's learning from this guy, I need to start tuning into him a bit more. And I forgot why I brought him up, but his teachings are so profound, so deep, that it's like just on another level, mind-blowing. That's why I brought him up. The idea of some of this information is just, your mind just cannot fathom it. But you mentioned neuroscience, and I was listening to a good amount of podcasts about neuroscience, but I'm also not super, my depth on that topic is not great. I'd love to hear a bit about what you've learned about neuroscience, and maybe a combination of the structures with a bit of practical tips, but take it wherever you would like to take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My understanding of neuroscience is really only when it's just when it comes to emotions. That's really where my methodology uses that. So the methodology is called cognitive mastery and emotional ownership. So cognitive mastery being more psychology, the mind, and then emotional ownership being vibration. So where I use neuroscience, where I use like teachings from neuroscience, I should say, to help my students, is to be more in tune with their body, to be more in tune with their feelings, feeling their feelings. See, a lot of times people forget that emotions and feelings are two separate things. And that's a very, very important thing to remember. And here's why. Emotions are the objective. Feelings are the subjective. And that's, again, really important to separate and differentiate the two. All an emotion is that molecule that gets sent out from the brain, and it goes into your body and attaches to the cells of your bodies, almost like a key going into a keyhole. That key being the molecule, the emotion, goes into the cell of your body, unlocks it, and then that cell vibrates a certain way. Now, the way we interpret that vibration, the way we interpret that chemical reaction going on within you, is what we call feelings. And we call them anything. We call it anger, we call it sadness. Anger could be anger could be full-blown rage, depending on how we describe that chemical reaction going on within. And what's crazy about it as well is that feelings are so subjective that when we look at country by country, there's so many different narratives of feelings. There's some cultures that are very expressive when it comes to what we consider negative emotions, right? I mean, I don't believe in negative or positive emotions. I believe in comfortable and uncomfortable emotions. Feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, anxiousness, fear. There's so many different ways that different cultures around the world experience those feelings, which shows that feelings are just socially constructed. They're just stories. They're just relationships that we create with our mind of our physical bodily sensations, essentially. These physical sensations going on within us. That's all a feeling is. It's the relationship that we are creating and connecting with what's going on chemically in the moment. That's all a feeling is. Now, the emotion is the objective. It's what we can see go from the brain into the body. So that's where I use neuroscience to help my students be able to differentiate what's going on physically with the story they're creating about it.
I like that a lot. I've never heard it described in that way. So the feelings are really our perception of it. And
Exactly.
I see Wes Watson said this and I really liked it. It's uncomfortable or negative feelings are not bad. They are a sign that something needs to change, that something isn't correct. See, America and a lot of our world has this idea that these uncomfortable feelings are bad. They shouldn't happen. Like, that's quite illogical. It's essentially insulting our creator, honestly, because we have those feelings for a reason. And this gets me into like my rift with body positivity, because if you're 400 pounds and overweight, the odds that your actions are creating uncomfortable or negative emotions, that's significantly likely, because you're probably consuming processed foods that your body is not meant to consume. You're probably your dopamine system, I can guarantee you, is fucked, because you're hooked on instant gratification and you're not doing any sort of longer form focus. And it is this whole big shitstorm of horrible actions that compound and compound into, and then society tries to say that that's okay, that you shouldn't feel bad about being overweight. Listen, I'm not here to shame anyone overweight. I think my point is, you can feel much better. You right now could be that fish in water. You don't understand how much better you could feel. And it is important to accept that you feel negative or uncomfortable. There's a reason behind that. And now it's time to change your actions. It's time to introspect, to look at, okay, when I get into an argument in the comment sections, how does that make me feel? Because I've done this before, and then the whole entire day I'm worrying about, did I say the right thing? Maybe I made it. And that signified, Justin, you cannot be arguing back and forth in comment sections. And I know that's a bit of a rant, but it touches on the importance of paying attention, being aware of our feelings, and asking the questions like, did my actions link to me feeling this way? And maybe I should change the way I'm acting.
And I'm going to add to that. I love this example, by the way, because it's so relevant to anyone who uses social media and has a passion in something. But what I really love about this, and what I want to add about it too, is that it's not only about reflecting at your actions, reflecting on why you created those actions in the first place. what was it that challenged what was going on within me that I felt the need to defend? Because that's where the ego comes in. Someone getting mad at you on social media is not a problem unless you choose to see it as a problem, you know? And that's something that I needed to learn a lot on social media before I was involved with coaching. Like, luckily I got to work through a lot of that stuff during my streaming phase. But yeah, it's always a fascinating one because it always comes back to the thoughts. You use your actions, like, at least this is what I teach to my students. You use your actions not only to reflect on them, but to use it as a roadmap to go back up to your mind again. So, okay, here's the action and here was the result. What were you feeling in that moment that drove that action? Almost like, let's think about feelings now as a fuel for actions. Because that's how actions are driven by feelings. Everything in this world is driven by feeling. So what was the feeling that you felt in that moment? All right, perfect. What's the thought? What's the thought that created the need to defend, to feel defensive, to feel like you need to be right? What's the thought? And that right there is where healing is done.
And it's such a, it's not easy to put yourself in this state of mind where you can catch yourself, because we have the biases, and it's easy to become polarized, to brainwash yourself in a way that you're right. Like, just like when you're driving a car, you have your blind spot, and sometimes we need other people to really point that out for us.
Yeah.
And see, in this journey of growing, I know for a fact there are blind spots I still have. And that's why I cannot stand when individuals act as if they have it all figured out, because that that's not how a real wise person would carry themselves. The wisest people are, they're understanding that they will make mistakes, but
Yes.
what can you do to minimize the probability of making mistakes? It really comes down to this understanding of how everything is so linked, and that what you put in your body affects your feelings, and what you do with your body affects your feelings. And if we choose to take the actions that increase our vibration, you're going to have more feelings. And it's this positive feedback loop. The more positive feelings you have, or comfortable feelings, the more you're going to continue to take the right actions. And this, see, I love when the podcast goes full circle. We touched on compounding in the beginning, and then it
Yeah.
comes back to how everything compounds, every decision you make. And I still have some things that I'm kind of working through, like, oh, Justin, does that actually make you feel good, or does that increase the odds of shame and guilt? And by asking those questions, I'm kind of coming to conclusions and making adjustments. So I'll never have it all figured out. I'm glad to say that. I don't want to, I just cannot stand the know-it-all. It really, I don't like that.
It can be, yeah, it can be difficult to be around someone who really wants to convince, hey, I have this all figured out. Because nobody has it figured out. Nobody does. We're all growing. We're all growing, and that's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. I want to, is there any important or crucial ideas, concepts that you want to leave off with, that you would feel as if it's been so instrumental in your growth? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, for me, it's always going to be a check and a reminder to look inward. It's always going to be that. Whenever I'm struggling, whenever I have a problem with somebody, whenever I catch myself chasing energy of trying to control a result, I always need to remind myself it's an inward process. What is it about what I'm seeing outside that's bothering me within? What is it about myself that I see within myself outside in this mirror that needs some attention?
And when you look inward, for me, it's just that daily meditation or these daily actions. Is there any activity that really helps clear your mind and allows you to feel connected with your higher self?
Yeah, no, really great question. So like a tangible like practice is what you're asking for, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So there's this one journaling method that I give all of my beginner students, and I use it still to this day, every single day. And here, I'll get a pen and paper out right now. I need to draw it out. This isn't going to be quick, by the way, but I can make it as efficient as possible.
That sounds good with me. I like
Cool.
depth. I'm more about
Cool.
depth than quickness.
Cool. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Justin. So this is called the model of alignment. And essentially, if you guys want to start practicing using a little bit of a system or a formula or a measurable behind your awareness and your intentional thoughts, which I guess we can call manifestations, right? When you're using your thoughts intentionally, you're manifesting. I mean, you're always manifesting, whether you're using them unintentionally or not, but you're manifesting something that's more in alignment with your highest self when you're using it intentionally. So this system, this formula helps you raise awareness to your unintentional self, your default self, your self that is still engaging in entertaining conditioning and stories that don't serve you. And then it helps you use the same exact formula again, but now you get to create it with your own mind, with your own perception, with your attunement with your highest self. So what I do every single morning and what I help my students do every single morning, I mean, I prefer the mornings when you start your day, but if you need to do it at night, go ahead. If you need to do it during lunchtime, go ahead. Whenever it really suits you. I personally see the benefit of getting it done first thing in the morning. I write everything that's on my mind as soon as I wake up. I just do a brain dump, a thought download. I just write it out. And then once I'm done with that download, I really pick a thought, just one thought that really stood out to me, or just a thought that I get from what I wrote down that really makes me feel uncomfortable. And then this is what I do. This is the formula I create. I'm not sure if the listeners are going to have the video for this as well. Do you share the video usually, or is it just audio?
Yeah, depending on where they listen,
Okay, cool.
Yes, but video will be for sure an option.
Cool. Okay, perfect. I'll explain out loud what's on the paper here. So this is the formula. C, you start with C at the top for circumstance, T for thoughts, F for feelings, A for actions, R for result. So what I do is when something is on my mind that is bothering me, that's really creating a lot of stuck energy within me, something is not flowing, something's stuck, something is aggravated, I identify the circumstance. Now, a circumstance is always completely neutral. It could be another person, it could be another person's actions, it could be the weather, it could be just anything that could be proven without subjectivity is a circumstance. So rain outside is a circumstance. Another example of a circumstance, we can use Twitter as an example. This person called me dumb, right? Like someone with this username called me a dumbass in the replies of my tweet. That is a circumstance. We can all look at that tweet. We can all scroll down to the reply, and we can all see, hey, you're dumb, right? As the reply. We can all agree that that is what we are seeing. It's neutral. It's just data. That's all it is. It's just data. We'll use that example, right? Someone comments on your Twitter response, says, hey, you're dumb. I don't agree with this. Now, what's the thought that's linked to that? What's the first thought that comes to mind? Is it, oh, they're shitty? Or is it, oh, I'm questioning myself Is it, I don't like what that person said? It could be whatever it is. What an asshole. It could be whatever, right? Whatever it is that thought comes up, that unintentional thought. That's the thought right there now. That's the subjectivity. That's the information we're creating from the data. The data is the circumstance, the neutrality of the world in front of us. Because everything in this world is neutral. It's just our perception that creates our experience. So this right here, the CT, this helps you create space in your daily practice between C and T. Maybe you're working on, I'll give you another example. Maybe you're working on dating. This is a common one too. You're a guy, you're working on dating, but talking to girls is scary for you. It still can create anxiousness within you. So maybe the C could be like cute girl at a coffee shop, or cute girl at the dog park, cute girl at a bar, or it could just be girls, women that I don't know, circumstance. The T would again be the subjectivity. I'm afraid to talk to her. I'm not good enough to talk to her. She's out of my league, right? These are all subjectivities, perceptions that we are creating out of what we are seeing visually in front of us. Okay, so now we go down the models. So we have C, T, F now for feelings. How does this thought make me feel? That's really what we're putting down here, the feeling of the thought. Next is going to be the action. So every action we have in life is driven by our feelings. So using the approaching a cute girl at a coffee shop example, cute girl would be the C, the T, she's out of my league, feeling of self-doubt. And because of self-doubt, maybe the action now is ignoring it, going back to what I was doing at the coffee shop, closing up, right? Maybe you can even put some like sensations going on in your body as well. You know, I have a closed off body language. I tighten up a bit. My throat tightens up. I feel this need to avoid, right? Avoidance, that's an action, because all inactions are actions too. And then from there, what's the result? And the result is essentially just what meaning you create out of the action. So if I know that I avoided that, the result would be, well, I'm not going on dates and getting to know new people. Because that's what's happening because of the direct action that I'm creating or not creating. So it's almost like we're creating a logical math of the subjectivity in our life. So now we use this to raise awareness of where we're at, and then we can use this model as well to create our reality. So same example again, cute girl at the coffee shop. Actually, I'm gonna use the Twitter one first, because I know this is gonna be going out to a lot of people who are on Twitter, so I think they'll appreciate this. C, the circumstance, right? Someone called me a dumbass on Twitter, on my response. The thought behind it can now be, this person is hurt, they're in pain. This person needs love. And what's the feeling now? Now we have compassion for others. Now we're choosing to love people intentionally and seeing through their hurt pain. Now we're creating healing. Now what would be the action for that? Maybe the action could be meet that person with compassion. Maybe the action is just don't respond to the tweet and just send them well energetically, like just send them a prayer or just think a good thought about them. It could be whatever you want to do, because you can never do right or wrong. It's the intention behind the action that is quote unquote right or wrong. You could reach out to them. You could just acknowledge them. Hey, like I see you're hurting by this tweet and I'm sorry to see that. If there's anything I could help you with for your understanding, I'm more than happy to be here. Whatever it is that you want to put your focus and attention on. But it's an action now that's coming from love, not divide. It's an action that's coming from unity, not hate. And the result is whatever you want to make that mean. Like maybe one result is you got to challenge yourself to love in a moment of tension. You got to challenge yourself to see someone for who they are. You got to see yourself for who you are in that moment. Because when you start seeing other people deeper, you start seeing yourself deeper, and vice versa, because we're all one, we're all connected. So that's just like one brief example of how to use the model of alignment there. And I am coming out with a free course soon. because I really, really love how much this methodology has helped people throughout this first year of coaching, a little over a year now, year and 4 months of coaching. And I want to be able to dive deeper on these concepts in a video formatted course that I'm going to be putting on Gumroad soon, all completely free. And we're going to dive deeper into what a circumstance is, what thoughts are, feelings, actions, results. And we're going to dive deeper into how to use that to overcome your fears and social anxiety, unintentionally and intentionally too. So yeah, so if people are interested in that, that course is coming out soon.
That's just fabulous. I love that you're giving back, for free. Like, there are some things that you will charge for, but then part this is the podcast for me. This is the weekly letter. Like, it's a win-win, some things. So you release a free course, you build more fans, you're helping people, and the teacher learns just as much or more than the student. You're refining your understanding by going and creating this course. So I really like that. You did a great, thorough job of explaining that. I'm a huge fan. I'm going to try that. Who knows? Maybe it becomes a daily practice for me. But and just that idea to leave off on is, we're all connected, and the world is not as it is, the world's as you are. It comes back to the perception. If you're working on yourself, growing, you see the potential in other people. See, this will bring you challenges because you're going to see the best in others. You're going to want others to do their best. Meanwhile, sometimes they're not ready. And that's a hard lesson I've had to come across, is you can't force someone to, you can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. And we can put out free content, but we can't. I love quotes and cliches. It's like, you can bring that horse to the river, you can put out free content, but you cannot force someone to really study it. You can't force the horse to drink the water. So that's why I love this combination of creating. The internet has given us such an opportunity to help ourselves by helping other people. See, humans naturally want to serve. It might be in a physical way, through being some sort of waiter, or it might be in this intellectual manner where we are sharing how we healed our own pain. That's like what my whole foundation is. I'm just looking to share how I healed myself, because I know that I'm weird. I know that I'm unique, but at the same time, I know there are other people who do think the same way as me. So I'm grateful for your time. This was just so much fun. And see, every day, maybe not every day, but often I have doubts. Like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be creating a podcast? I read a tweet from someone I love today, and he goes, "We don't need more podcasters and financial advisors. We need more cowboys and regenerative farmers." And part of me, I want to become a regenerative farmer in the future. I love the idea of using your hands, knowing how to be a cowboy. But I feel aligned with the podcast. Every time I have a conversation with a like-minded person, my energy is raised. I feel amazing. So it's like, who said that I can't be a cowboy and a podcaster? So we'll see what happens, but I'm just grateful for your time, man. I had a blast.
Dude, I'm grateful you invited me on here. Like, I really love the energy here. We're definitely aligned in a lot of viewpoints. I definitely would love to just like shoot the shit on Zoom with you sometime. That'd be fun. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on here, dude. Like, this elevated my energy this afternoon more than you know. So